And I think when he passed to him, I think it was like 3 seconds up on the shot clock, and he gave it to me. So I really had no choice but to put the shot up.
Scotty Thurman, born November 10th, 1974. Back in 94-95, Scotty Thurman was the second leading scorer on a team that made it to the final game of the college basketball season. The year before, his Arkansas team defeated a Duke team led by Grant Hill and was the favorites to win it all that year on a buzzer-beating three that broke the tie and gave the Razorbacks the lead for good and their only national championship in program history. He was also the second leading scorer on his team, 6'6", and shot the lights out at well over 40% from three in each of his 3 seasons. Yet he was not drafted in the NBA draft and never even given an opportunity to prove himself for a minute on that level. This was a guy who left college early on promises upon promises that he would be a first-round pick, even as high as lottery should he leave and give up his final year in school. A year without Corliss Williamson, the team's leading scorer and face, who dominated the ball in Thurman's time at Arkansas, gone on to the NBA. According to the Washington Post, instead of NBA competition, fame, and the fortune of being an NBA-level athlete, Scotty Thurman began his career as far from the NBA as possible in cold gyms, no team doctors, and $3,000 a month somewhere in Macedonia. A far cry from the opportunity lesser players on his team would eventually get, Clint McDaniel and Corey Beck both making it to the NBA. You then ask yourself, how in the world does that happen? You understand there's levels to this and the NBA is the highest, but how does a guy like Scotty Thurman not even play a single game? He wasn't some trouble kid breaking team rules and embarrassing the university. He wasn't undersized for his position. He shot the shit out the ball, and he was as tested as they came, averaging a career high in scoring as a freshman in college, more than his eventual lottery pick teammate. It's a shock to most and makes Thurman one of the more confusing situations in draft history. He, since going undrafted, played in 6 different countries for what ESPN called peanuts, waiting for an NBA phone call that never came. When basketball was over, he had to figure it out, like the rest of athletes who focused their entire lives, even into their 30s, on the dream of playing basketball for a living. After that's over, it's like you're actually behind your peers in all characteristics fit for society, as by the same time, they already have their lives pretty much figured out. He became a real estate agent, assistant head coach for a short time at his old school, and still basking in the glory of one moment in his basketball life he's forced to relive every time someone new talks to him. The NBA journey is an interesting one that, if not for this or that, could go different for a lot of really talented players. For these reasons, NCAA champ Scotty Thurman did not make the NBA, in my opinion. What happened? Let's talk about it. Salute to JTR5393 for this request. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth. Let's get it, man. Take a minute to like, subscribe, and comment on who I should do next. Scotty Thurman was a 6'6" shooting guard from Ruston, Louisiana that was highly recruited but decided on Arkansas after he and Arkansas legend Corliss Williamson bonded at an AAU tournament and decided to go there together, if for nothing, to have someone familiar riding the journey with them. At Arkansas, Thurman came in as ready as can be. He led the team in scoring at 17.4 points a game and shot 44% from 3. Over the course of the next 2 seasons, he'd hover around 15 to 16 points a game and consistently shot over 40 from deep, winning in the midst of it and looking like a surefire NBA draft pick. Obviously, he thought that way when he entered the draft early after his junior year, only to watch 58 picks go by without hearing his name. Stunt number 1, before his time. Like mentioned, Scotty Thurman was a stone-cold sniper from the three-point range all throughout his college career, and at his height would be a dream selection for any NBA team in this era. I couldn't imagine the help he could be for any team since the late 2000s to now. A 6'6", smooth shooting guard with a quick release, all the savvy tricks to get his shot off over the nation's best defenders, and could make all the shots required of him at that position. He came into Arkansas confident enough to lead an annual tournament-making team in scoring and that year put up a career-high 44% from 3. In this era, Scotty Thurman would have left after that one season and be a top 5 draft pick with ideal production to fit perfect in this era. For the era he was in, the mid-90s, the game was totally different for shooting guards and wing players. Michael Jordan was the mold at that time, an athletic, slashing, fundamental killer with all the moves to be an aggressive, athletic scorer. He didn't take much threes because it wasn't the shot to take at the time. Shooting guards were strong, they drove the ball and created opportunities for themselves or their teammates. They posted up as well and used their size over smaller guards for easy shots. Nowadays, a 6'6" shooting guard that knocked down threes over 40% for 3 years in college while taking his team deep in the tournament and actually winning a championship over a school like Duke, scoring 15 points and making 3 of 6 threes in the championship game, and a pair of SEC All-Conference selections would have tons of opportunity for success and play a long time in the NBA, at least be drafted. Instead, Scotty Thurman didn't even get a game in the league to show his college greatness wasn't a fluke. It's hard to say a player would have been better in a different era because of how different the player himself may have turned out, but with the shooting ability mixed with size Thurman had, I guarantee he would have been a solid to great NBA pro in a different era. Stunt number 2, striking at the wrong time. Another reason Scotty Thurman didn't make the NBA, in my opinion, is because he decided to leave for the NBA at the wrong time. After his freshman year, he could have fared much better entering the draft at that time than ever in hindsight. Even though in 1993 leaving early for the league wasn't the it thing to do, and one and done surely was a rare occurrence. But speaking from observing his talent and production alone, those things don't come together and work the way they did, as well as they did, in the least amount of minutes of his career all the time. As we can see, even for him, he didn't have a year quite like his first in scoring and shooting efficiency. His second and third years were obviously great too, going to the national final twice, all-tournament team, championship, all-conference, and more. Besides not leaving after his freshman year being a mistake, he made another one and then left too soon after having a down year and 5 points in the biggest game of his life, that being losing to the UCLA Bruins in '95. By then, Scotty Thurman was a junior in college and averaged career lows across the board in the most minutes played of his 3 seasons. It's the typical, oh, I missed this shot, so let me change my routine on the next, and wind up missing that too. He should have left in '93, then stayed too long, being kind of exposed as a player who at the very least isn't one that's getting better. At the point he left, he should have stayed and took over the team with Corliss, their leading scorer the past 2 seasons, finally gone to the NBA. Scotty Thurman would have averaged at least 22 to 25 that year and become one of the best in the country, guaranteeing a huge payday, longevity, and a chance on the highest level. Thurman would admit later on that his agent poorly advised him to leave without teams giving him any real insurance his player would be drafted, which is why teams were shocked he even entered the draft. Stunt number 3, peaked early on. Lastly, I feel like Scotty Thurman is one of those players that simply peaked too soon and it was all downhill from there. By the time he left college and went pro, his skills weren't improving enough in those other leagues to convince the NBA they made the wrong choice passing on him in the draft. Obviously, teams felt the same way. I'm sure they kept their eyes on what he was doing from places like the D-League, CBA, even his time overseas, and no one offered him even a 10-day contract. Looking at his college stats alone, he declined every year as a scorer and shooter, which is a huge sign a guy may have reached his athletic peak and already on the downside of his career. It's not the be-all end-all, but don't be surprised when a guy doesn't improve over the years if you draft him. No call ended up coming for Thurman as he embarked on a journey all over the world in search of stability and the best financial situation. He last played in 2006 and after got into real estate in the state he's a god in, and also became an assistant head coach for 3 years at Arkansas. He's now a high school coach there, mostly known for his shot against Duke all the way back to his second year in college. All in all, Scotty Thurman was a good young player, very professional, and in the right situation to have a chance at the league. That chance never came for the NCAA champ for these reasons. Salute, much respect. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth, and I'm out.